bizarreness, if you will, of the times in which we live at this time, and acknowledge the fact that life never seems to work out the way we always planned it to. We come together this morning, obviously, to honor the life and the memory of Diane Guggenheimer. We are assembled together with our family here and those who are able to join us via the internet in the shadow of the death that has occurred. We need light when gloom darkens our lives. To whom shall we look if not to the creator of light? We need fortitude and courage when pain and loss assail us. Where shall we find them, if not in the thought of the one who preserves all that is good from destruction? All things pass, all that lives must die. All that we prize is but lent to us, and the time comes when we must surrender it. We are travelers on the same road that leads to the same end. O eternal God of life, there are days when our burdens overwhelm us, when our paths are littered with rocks and snags. Although we gather in the light of day, our world is darkened as the shadow of death intrudes itself into our lives. Help us to find light even in these dark moments, O God, and enable us to hear the music of life, even as we gather surrounded by the silence of death. Help us to draw comfort and courage from each other and from our memories of the times that we shared with Diane. Rabbi Alvin Fine wrote, "Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but rather in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. But perhaps the wisest of all words that capture the irrevocable rhythms and patterns of our mortal existence are the words of Kohelet of Ecclesiastes. L'chol zman ve'etz, l'chol chafetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. L'chol zman ve'etz, l'chol chafetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven. And this is a time of remembering. For it is through remembering that we show gratitude for a life that has been but loaned to us. So let us apply the healing ointment of memory to our wounded hearts. I first met Diane when I became the rabbi at Temple Bethor in 2008, and there is so much more to Diane than the past 12 years. I'm grateful to all of you who have shared so much about Diane, especially Rhonda, and the reflections that she shared. Diane was born 81 years ago to Irving and Frances Schwartzman in the Bronx. She was the only child born to the Schwartzmans and is preceded in death by her parents and by her stepfather, Larry Doyle. 81 years. We think of the history that Diane lived and experienced. She was 2 years old when the United States entered World War II, when polyester was invented. She was 4 years old when penicillin was first used to cure a patient, when the slinky and the silly putty entered the world, and when Jacques Cousteau invented what was then called the aqualung, later to become scuba gear. She was 5 years old when FDR was elected to his fourth term, 6 years old when World War II comes to an end, She was 8 years old when the world was introduced to instant cameras from the Polaroid company. Now we carry our cameras in our phones. She was 8 when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. She was 9 years old when the Frisbee was invented, Velcro, the Wurlitzer jukebox, and when Israel became a modern state. And she was 10 years old when cake mix was invented. Perhaps that's why she was such a great baker, because she had learned to do everything from scratch.
That's right.
And that's just the beginning of her life. We have yet to get to space travel, landing on the moon, the internet, cell phones, all the modern devices that we relish. Diane was no stranger to challenges or to hard times. I learned that her father had died. Irving died when she was, 6 years of age. Her mother went to live with her grandparents. There she lived with an extended family in very close quarters with her Aunt Helene, who was more like a sister to her. And in the downstairs apartments, there were Aunts V and Uncle Jack and Harry and Ronnie. Diane was blessed to have a large extended family, whose pictures, I understand, still are part of the Guggenheimer home. Francis would later meet and marry Larry Doyle, and together they would share in life's adventures. When Diane was 18 years old, she attended a Wednesday night Jewish service at the nearby Mitchell Air Force Base in Long Island, and there is where she met Staff Sergeant David Guggenheimer. Both were actually on other dates, I learned, but they decided to meet up later. And as they say, the rest is history. After 5 months of dating and many lengthy phone calls, they got married. They planned to get married. I learned a very interesting story, Rhonda. Thank you so much for sharing that. It was getting to be a rather large wedding, and there was some tensions. Hey, planning any wedding is always stressful, but there were some extended family issues and stresses that entered into the picture. And so Diane and David did a brave thing. They eloped, and in 1958 were married. Of course, the catch was the invitations for the wedding had already gone out, so Diane had to many of the guests. David and Diane danced in each other's circle to the music of life for 61 years and added to their family tree 3 children, Rhonda, Steve, and Lara. A family tree that with spouses Jeff and Nikki has grown to include 4 grandchildren, Kathy, Andy, Jack, and Renee, and Kathy's boyfriend, Josh. David was a staff sergeant with the U.S. Air Force. As such, Diane and her family would live in a variety of places: Okinawa, Oklahoma, Massachusetts, finally being transferred here to Southern California. I learned that Diane was known for her creativity and her artistic talents and her culinary skills. She was a seamstress at home, making many dresses for her daughters and clothes for her children, as well as for the other at the officers' banquets in Okinawa. She was made decorations for various events. And her culinary skills, I learned that Diane's apple pie, herb bread, and rum butter cake were legendary, as were her Chinese spare ribs, lasagna, and spaghetti. Holiday celebrations brought out the best in the Guggenheimer home, including not only the food, but the Noritake china and the bronze cutlery from Oklahoma that were always deployed in celebration of those events. I learned that Diane became a real estate agent in 1974 and received her certificate exchanger designation in 1976, and went on to work actively with the real estate exchange community and did lots of travels with the exchange community. Diane and Dave were always very active in whatever temple they joined. When they were in Torrance, they were members of Temple Menorah. When they moved to Cerritos, they joined Temple Beth Or. Indeed, not only was Diane a dedicated volunteer for our sister of our congregation, and I learned from my predecessor, our Rabbi Emeritus, Rabbi Larry Goldfarb, that for his 20th year with the congregation, a special surprise party had been planned. And unbeknownst to him, Diane had orchestrated with him the false pretense of officiating at a baby naming ceremony, which of course was not the case. Larry Goldmark still remembers how Diane was able to pull one over on him which is to her credit, because he is not one who is easily fooled. I learned as well that she went on to become a financial advisor and remained working there with the financial advisors, with Barth Financial Advisors, from where she retired. But perhaps most importantly was Diane's love of music. She always had music playing at her home. Indeed, when I would visit with her in her various care facilities, there was all music being played, either on CD or just the radio. I believe K-Jazz was always going in the background. Diane and David attended many live musical performances, and in later years became fans of jazz and attended the Orange County Jazz Festival until it closed. And I think it's a special opportunity that we share a little bit of music. Rhonda, you and Jeff, I'll take the phone and hold it. You all are going to play some music for us as a tribute to Diane's memory. The best way is to way up high, there's a land somewhere over the rainbow side are blue, and that dream that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind, where trouble smells like lemon drops away up on the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, somewhere over the rainbow. Birds fly, birds fly over the rainbow. Why and oh why can't I? I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of green, clouds of white, bright blessed day and the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love
bright. I watch them glow. They'll learn more than all. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
Beautiful. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Jeff.
Beautiful, Rhonda.
Well
Beautiful,
done, guys.
Jeff.
Very fitting.
Getting some comments back.
I was
You're welcome.
good until you started singing, and then the tears.
Yeah, well, we made it. We made it.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, back to the rabbi, I think. No, is that right? Yeah, this way. Okay.
May you all find comfort and strength from all who gather by your sides, both near and with the wonderful blessing of the internet. And may we all be comforted in the knowledge that Diane now rests in eternal peace. In Olam Haba, the world to come, Diane has been gathered to her kin. Diane died during the week in which we note many transitions and changes. Soon, very soon, we will celebrate the end of this truly bizarre year and hope for a better 2021. But we also have a place in this week's Torah portion. 5 books of Moses are divided up so that each week there is a particular section that is read. And this week's Torah portion, known as Vayechi, brings us to the end of the first book of the 5 books of Moses, the end of the book of Genesis. And in this week's Torah portion, we read of the deaths of Jacob, Joseph, and all of Joseph's brothers and of that generation. And yet when our Torah speaks of Jacob's death, it doesn't say that Jacob died. It says rather that Jacob lived, Vayechi. He lived for 135 years. Yeah, all right, so the numbers can get a little exaggerated in our Torah. But it doesn't describe Jacob's death, but rather that he lived. He lived during those years. And I think that's what reminds me most about Diane. Yes, especially the past several years, Diane has faced numerous health challenges. And it's been difficult for all of us to see this very active, very vibrant, very loving and giving person be stolen from us bit by bit by the various challenges that she was facing. And yet, as we reflect on Diane's life, we realize that she lived. She lived all of those years, those 81 years. She lived celebrating joyously with her family, taking great pride in her family's accomplishments, and celebrating life to the fullest amidst the challenges that she herself faced. As a wife, as a mother, as a temple president, as a real estate agent, all of those aspects of her lives. Although Diane is no longer physically with us, she will always be a part of us through the good deeds that she performed and the many ways in which she touched all of your lives and my life as well. And so we remember and we reflect and we cherish the life of this, our wife and our mother and our grandmother and our dear friend, Diane Guggenheimer. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember Diane. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember Diane. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember Diane. In the beginning of the year And when it ends, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember Diane. And when we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, so too shall Diane live, for she is now a part of us. Judaism teaches us that death is part of the fabric of life. At one end there is birth, at the other end there is death. When that death comes, it tears at that very fabric and leaves you, the family members, with a deep wound that you carry on the inside. As a symbolic way of showing that wound, I tear a ribbon that was pinned to Rhonda, by extension to all of the family members, to show how Rhonda's death has torn at the fabric of your lives and have left you with a wound on your hearts. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, notea b'tocheinu chayei olam. We praise you, our eternal God, sovereign of the universe, who forms us in the divine image, who nourishes and sustains us, and who implants immortal life within us. And let us say,
Amen.
Merrick Malloy wrote, when I die, give what's left of me away to children and to old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words, better than sounds. Look for me in the people I've known and the people I've loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be freed. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. We come to the conclusion of our ceremony here with one of our traditional prayers. The other prayer we will share at the internment site. This prayer, known as the Al Malei Rachamim, speaks of God as a compassionate being, and yet it is a prayer we share at the time of our most powerful emotions, grief and loss and pain. It is a prayer that also teaches us an important lesson. For the opposite of love is not hate. Ask any child, any parent, any spouse, any partner. The opposite of love is apathy. And where there's apathy, there is no grief, there is no pain, there's no loss. But neither is there any laughter or joy or love. We live in a world blessed by God's love, and as such, we live in a world with these very powerful emotions. And yet it is that very love that can help us transcend the distance we feel from Diane and from all of our departed. As a tribute to Diane's memory and to all that she brought to all of our world, to our world, I invite you to rise as you are able to stand for this prayer. El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim Amtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Im Kedoshim U'Toharim Kizohar HaRakia Mazirim Et Nishmat Yakirenu V'Yedidenu Shalcha La'olama V'Gan Eden Tehi Menuchata Ba'al HaRachamim Yastireha B'Seter Genefecha Le'olamim V'yitzvor B'Tzvor HaChayim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'Tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'Nomah Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our beloved Diane Guggenheimer, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence, and there in the shadow of your wings, let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May Diane rest in peace, and let us say,
Amen.
This concludes this portion of our funeral service for Diane. From here, with the aid of the staff here at Riverside National Cemetery, we will proceed for interment, where we will share the final blessing and final prayer in the words of our college. Gratitude is started with tears and laughter, trembling and fatigue all in one thing. The death returns to the earth as it was, the fear returns to God. It is only the hump of the soul which will go within the earth. The soul itself does not. Oh God, help us to understand that grief and love go hand in hand. That the pain which loss inflicts is a measure that is love, is a measure of a love that is stronger than death. In this spirit, O God, do we commit all that is precious to us to your keeping. As we repeat the words, followed by the generations, the words of our God. Yitadol v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divra kirutei, v'yamlich halchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei v'kol beit Yisrael. V'agalav v'zman kavi, v'yimru Yitbarach v'yitkabach, Yitbahar v'yitomach v'yitnasher, V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shemei v'kudusha v'ritku, La'elam yinkol v'yakata v'shirata, Tush v'chata v'nechamata, Da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya, V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen.
Sure.
That's all right. Tell you what. Sprinkle that up there. Yep, sprinkle that. Okay. Right. This concludes our service. That's it.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
We need you, Rabbi.